Welcome back to another episode of Nerds on Ice, where cool nerds get fired up on today's hot topics. As always, I am your host, Chris Fury, and let's meet our cool nerds for this evening. So, returning to the show, we have Venchise, one half of the husband and wife cosplay duo team, Mixed Madness Cosplay. They've won Best Group Duo at the multiple conventions with their 17th century gender swap Joker and Harley Quinn. You can check out our work on Instagram at Mixed Madness Cosplay, and that's an underscore between those two, and I'm mixed with a Y. Thanks for coming on, Venchise.
Of course, happy to be back as always.
Casey is a plus-size cosplayer from Cleveland, Ohio. She started from hot gluing in her on her kitchen floor to creating cosplays from scratch. Her 5 years of cosplaying has taught her a lot. She has tutorials on wig styling, cosplaying on a budget to help other creators. And you can find her at Casey_Nicole_cosplay on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thanks for coming on, Casey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Pally Kashra is a member of the Costumers with a Cause Midwest. He obviously loves cosplay as well as video games, board games, and tabletop RPGs. He has degrees in both music education and special education, and he plays several brass and woodwind instruments. If you want to catch him streaming on Twitch, go follow Paladin356. Thanks for coming on, Paladin.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
All right. And finally, we have Assad. He's a member of the International Federation of Trekkers. Although he prefers to be called a Trekkie, he loves comics, sci-fi, with an unusual amount of 70s and 80s British telefantasy, computer games, tabletop games, and cosplay. And he just got a nice little cat.
Where is this cat?
I believe in letting sleeping cats lie.
So we all have cosplayer. Everyone on this board is a cosplayer. So today's topic of conversation is the dark side of cosplay. So we'll talk about everything from the pay or how much it costs to cosplay, the budget, good Lord, the haters. You know, you deal with sexism, racism, colorism of all types dealing in cosplay. You have the gatekeepers of cosplay. So we'll start there. We'll start with the gatekeeping part of cosplay. We know that the negative side to cosplay, unfortunately, is people who think they know best or think they can call the shots or basically gatekeep. Pally, we'll start with you. Have you experienced anything in gatekeeping? Have you seen gatekeeping or have witnessed it or any form in cosplay?
It's interesting. I've been cosplaying for over 10 years now. Holy cow. And when I first started, it was very interesting because I didn't really know a group of people. I had a friend that just kind of brought me into it. And then eventually, as I got more into it, I started to definitely start seeing those dark sides. Like, I remember there was this, I'm not mentioning any names or anything, like there was this one, like the first time I ever dealt with it was this one person wanted to get people to join like Vocaloid and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm not really into Vocaloid. I know a little about it, but hey, I'm willing to help out. And, I shot this video for this person. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I found someone else to do it. So it was kind of like one of those moments like, what, I guess I'm not, you're saying that I'm not good enough, and they like try to make it like, oh, I don't want drama or anything like that. So I think that was like the first time that I really kind of experienced gatekeeping. And I mean, there have been other times where like I've been wanting to do like a certain costume for a group and they're like, oh, well, we got someone else to do this, like after I signed up first, where it was like first come, first serve. And it just, it's frustrating because like I just want to show my love for a characters, and then having people say that like, oh, yours is not good enough, then that just like saying basically they're saying that I am the one who will let people in, basically, and don't like that.
Right. Casey, what do you have?
So I mean, gatekeeping happens like a lot in like both the like anime community, but also like a lot in the cosplay community as well. Like I've had instances where I've gone to conventions and I've met up with like mutuals, and then their mutuals will look at me and be like, oh, well, who are you? And, you know, what's your amount of following? You know, what are you doing? Who do you cosplay? Like, oh, like I've done this, and, you know, this is how many followers I have. So like, there's a form of gatekeeping where it comes to like social media, where your cosplay is like based on how many likes you get, how many followers you get, how much attention you get. So like, it gets really discouraging for other creators and people who are just coming into this community to just right off the bat see this competition between all these creators and stuff of like, you know, how well are you doing on social media and stuff. So that's one form of gatekeeping that I deal with like a lot of times.
Sorry.
I haven't. I guess I've been lucky. Can't say that I've really run into any experiences of gatekeeping or anything like that. On the other hand, I also haven't really made any efforts like into joining like cosplay groups. I don't really have so far any sort of online presence for my cosplay or anything like that. So that might have kept me from experiencing.
Saved you from the drama.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. So for better or for worse, I mean, so far, maybe I've just been lucky.
Yeah. Venchise.
Yeah, I haven't experienced it a lot myself. I've seen other people experience it. In a way, I'm lucky that most of the people who follow me on Instagram, like all 7 of them, are like my friends and family, so they're supportive of me. And I haven't really put myself out there. And I feel like in a way I kind of gatekeep myself, because there's a lot of times where I will look at a character and be like, okay, well, I'm not black or white enough to do this character. I don't want to do it and then get any feedback or hate because of it. So I feel like in a way I gatekeep myself to protect myself from that gatekeeping, because I know it's out there. And especially for like cosplayers of color, they, you know, the second that they try and do a black version of this, there's so much hate that can come out there that I've seen, that I've kind of been a little scared to put myself out there in that way, because I'm like, oh man, I know that once those gates open, that's a lot of things that can come that way.
So let's talk about that, since you touched on it. You have a lot of, unfortunately, racism still exists in this country. And unfortunately, in the world of cosplay, it still exists, where they still say things such as, oh, that character is not Asian, or that character is not white, or this character isn't black. But you're cosplaying somebody, or a person, or a video game character, or a comic book character, or a movie character who you obviously like. You like that they have a cool look or whatever, and you attach yourself to that character. Why? Or Venchise, you've already spoken about it. Pally, we can go to you. And I'm like, have you seen it? Have you experienced that type of drama dealing with the cosplay community?
Oh, let me. There is one. I've got a couple experiences. There is one in particular that always stands out to me, and I was at Indiana Comic Con. A friend of mine, and Sewing Is Half the Battle. I'm gonna give them a shout out because they're awesome. But got me in, and I was helping them out with some panels that they were running and stuff like that. And on the Sunday of the convention, I went as the 10th Doctor, and I have been cosplaying 10th Doctor for a couple years. I hadn't at the time really been big on the Doctor Who fan train. I mean, I'm huge on it now, but there was one instance that came up where I'm dressed up and I'm like walking around, and all of a sudden this guy comes up to me. He's like, oh, look, it's the Black Doctor. Hey, Blockter. And I kind of looked at him. I'm just like, dude, what is your problem? Like, that is not funny. That is racist. And like I said, and luckily the friends that he was with were kind of like, oh, I am so sorry about that. And I just kind of took that moment to be like, you know, just kind of educate him. I mean, I am a teacher after all, but just kind of let him know, it's just like, you can't make comments like that. It's not cool. Right. And like, that's the one experience that always just kind of sits with me, because it's like, I feel like it was the biggest extreme. And and it's interesting because I've had people also tell me that when that happens, I should just turn it into a joke and stuff like that. And I remember telling someone like that, I'm just like, I go to cons to just relax and have fun, not to be labeled with my skin color. I shouldn't have to do anything. I should be able to go to a con and enjoy it without like someone making a joke about my skin color and what I'm wearing.
Casey, now you mentioned you're a plus size cosplayer.
Yes. Yes, I am.
And I know that there are a lot of people out there in the cosplay community or outside of the cosplay community who feel the need to say, oh, this person isn't this particular way because you're not this comic book fantasy weight of 110 pounds and, whatever. So have you ever seen or witnessed or come across stuff people saying that you're too big for this costume, or this person doesn't look like this, or you don't look like this person because of your weight or whatever?
Absolutely. I actually get those comments a lot on social media. Like, people just think that, like I post something and they're like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm just going to tell you that you're way too big for that, and that this character is not plus size, they're not fat, they're this size. And it's just like, really, I'm just imitating a character. Like, that's the whole point of cosplaying, is me taking a character and making it as my own. But yeah, I get those instances all the time where they always tell me like, oh yeah, like this character isn't fat. It's like, well, I'm plus size. Like, I am who I am. I'm just imitating a person. So yeah. I get those instances all the time. And then like when you're at conventions too, when you're in group settings and stuff, you kind of feel just some form of like, oh, I'm a little bit bigger than other people, and people are tending to more notice like other cosplayers that fit the character and stuff, and that's where like insecurities come in and all that kind of stuff.
All right, Assad, have you came across anything when you have that? Have you ever had any insecurities or noticed anyone in an insecure situation dealing with cosplay?
I definitely felt some insecurities, though fortunately they ended up being unwarranted. I did one of my cosplays that I do is sort of like a Pakistani version of the TARDIS, so it's got like a turban and a more ethnic sort of coat, and it's got Arabic writing and stuff like that. So that's
I've seen this one, and it is amazing. It is like, it's so creative, and I just love how adding the culture into it. But I just had to add that.
Thank you. But yeah, so that was a fun costume to wear. But I was definitely, the first time I wore it, I was pretty nervous about it. But and my girlfriend at the time, somebody told her that they thought it was kind of a courageous thing to do. But I was lucky again, I guess, that it went down pretty well. People appreciated it. Yeah. But I was definitely kind of nervous about it. I wasn't really sure how it would go down.
All right. Here's another part of, now we've talked, that's pretty much the darkest of the dark on the dark side of cosplay. But let's touch on something I think we all have come across. Basically cosplaying on a budget, or lack thereof.
Sorry.
Because I think we can all agree that there are times like, if it's not a closet cosplay, you're probably going to spend a little bit of money doing that next costume. So tell me, we'll start. Casey, you strike me as someone who does a lot of sewing.
Yes, I actually, a majority of my cosplay, it's all like hand sewn. I've actually been like learning as I go with sewing and stuff, and materials are so expensive. I never realized how expensive like materials are just to complete a cosplay was. So I had to figure out a way to kind of like save my time and money. So I've been recently going to thrift stores and finding curtains and figuring out a way to just make it work, and nobody notices. That's the best thing. It's like no one notices like it was a curtain or a bed sheet. They're just like, oh wow, like that cosplay is great. It's like, thanks. It was bed sheets. You just got to get creative.
What is the most you've ever spent? Yeah.
I think
that you're willing to admit. That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm not ashamed. I think the most I've spent on a cosplay is like maybe $300. It was for Beekeeper May, and there was a certain type of fabric that I wanted, and I was so picky about it. I couldn't find it anywhere else, so I finally caved in and went on Spoonflower and was like, hey, custom design this for me. And $100 later that it came in, and then like it just started piling on after that. But it was so worth it. The price tag is just a thing, when you put it on, it just makes it all better. Just don't worry about it on your credit card.
Venchise?
Oh boy. Yeah. Honestly, thrift stores are a blessing. I have ordered sheets off of Amazon because that is a large amount of fabric that you can get for very, very little comparatively to buying that kind of yardage from the craft store. And I think there are some people who can make entire fantastic cosplays just from the thrift store, and they can literally spend $50. And then there are people who will spend more. And it's one of those things where you don't have to spend a lot of money to make an incredible cosplay. For me, I wish I could convince myself of that. It would save myself a lot of time, because I too have gone to Spoonflower and spent close to $100 for this much fabric just to get the perfect thing. But yeah, I think that the cost part of it can scare away a lot of people, because when you look at these huge completed cosplays, you're like, how could that have cost a reasonable amount of money? And sometimes it doesn't. Like, that's just the fact. There are some cosplays that cost a lot of money, but there are some that look just as good, if not better, that can cost a tenth of as much, depending on the person's skill level, what they're able to find. It really is unique. There can be someone who walks down the street and finds the perfect fabric for $1 a yard, where someone else making the same cosplay doesn't have that, and they have to spend $20 a yard to get something that looks the same. So it really, like, the cost of it is kind of up to you, and you can set your own budget. I know for me, the most I've spent was probably for the Joker Harley. I think between me and my husband's costume, it was probably about $600 for total for both of them, for like both wigs, the shoes, his hammer, like the custom like fabric from Spoonflower. And like, I'm glad I can wear that for the rest of my life, and I'm going to. I spent that much money on it. But like, that's not the same. I have a Lilu cosplay that the whole thing cost me $20, and for the shirt, some duct tape and some craft foam to make her suspenders. So it's really up to you what you want to spend.
So let's talk about the physical and emotional cost of the cosplay. We've all been at the con crunch, day before, night before, long hours on end. Assad, how does that, have you gone through the con crunch, and how have you dealt with con crunch on the physical afterwards, after the con, or before the con? How do you deal with the emotional part of it? Like, oh God, I just did all of this. I'm not going to get this done. And then it pays off. Have you dealt with any of that?
Unfortunately, I'm not as skilled with making things as probably other people on this panel. So usually I have to make sure that I've got everything ready before I leave for the convention. So in some ways that makes things a little easier to get through. But it does leave me feeling sometimes that I'm kind of missing out on some of the real things that can happen.
You're not missing out on anything.
No, you are not.
So what about you, Pally? I know you've seen some things. I've
Oh,
seen
yes.
your face later.
So there were so I always, whenever, like, after 2011, when I went to ASIN, I decided I'm going to be Chrono from Chrono Trigger, one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. And I remember I was sewing until like the first, like pretty much during the first night of Anime Central. And I feel like I missed a good part of that convention. And then like after that, I'm just like, never again. I'm setting a schedule. Once it gets to this point, usually the week before, which doesn't always work out that way, it usually becomes an all-nighter the Wednesday before the con. But usually when that happens, then I'm just like, okay, I set myself a a time to just stop and not like, this is when my target date of being done is. And, you know, that's worked pretty well. But there is another time where another character that I wanted to cosplay, Welkin Gunther from Valkyria Chronicles, and this was like at the time one of my most difficult cosplays, because it's pretty detailed. There are a lot of like small, they're like, I had to make buttons for it, and like it was a jacket with like augments and stuff like that. But there was 1 year, and actually it happened twice. There was like 1 year where I was trying to get it to work for ASEN, and I just had to I'm just like, I can't do it. Like, I'm not gonna just have something and then present it for a convention. And that really that was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, because like, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I have to admit, but like, I don't want to do something and have it look bad. Because when I present myself as a cosplayer, I want to make sure I'm looking good and stuff like that. And unfortunately, that was like one of the times where I had to like make that really hard decision. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to make it. So I had to stop. But like that con crunch, oh man, like it, like I always try to set myself up as a target date. And then just in case like I have like something happens, I have those like other 3 or 4 days where I can just make some last minute fixes. But right. Yeah, I hate con crunch, and especially with all the emotion where you're going through like, oh, I'm so excited to do this cosplay, and then you're like, get to that con crunch, it's like, I want this thing to be done, I never want to wear it again. And then, you know, you get it done, you wear it, it's like, it's so great.
Yeah. Assad, what all cosplays have you actually done?
I've got the Brigadier from classic Doctor Who. I've got my Pakistani TARDIS. There's another sort of fusion thing that I sort of put together. And again, when I say put together, I mean I found places that could put it together for me, like a Horatio Hornblower, Captain Kirk blend up. And other than that, I just have a whole bunch of like, I have a Batman, 1960s Batman, obviously, that I haven't had a chance to pull out because there's no conventions anymore.
Yeah,
I miss conventions.
Unfortunately, that's part of the dark side of cosplay right now, is not having a convention to go to.
It's cosplaying has gone dark.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just thinking about once the pandemic ends, I mean, it's gonna end. It's not gonna be like this forever, but it feels that way. But like, I'm just wondering how like con-going cosplay is gonna be after this. Like, it's gonna change.
Yeah. Casey, con crunch, emotional, physical.
Oh God, all of the above. Like, Pally, pretty much everything you said, I felt to that at an emotional level. And like you say, you give yourself deadlines and stuff. Well, I give myself deadlines too. I have never hit those deadlines, to be honest. But the emotional struggle to con crunching, I have literally stayed up till like 1 a.m. just to finish a cosplay, to drive 5 hours to a convention, not have any sleep, be in a cosplay all day that is just so uncomfortable, but I look good. And then as soon as you just get to the hotel room or wherever you're staying, you just have that emotional and then like you just feel so like drained when you get home. At least for me, I feel so drained when I get home, because it's like excitement. You did con crunching till 1 a.m. and then you get home, you're like, I have no feelings. I just
now,
just an empty shell.
Now, Venchise, last time you were on and we talked about some parts of cosplay, you cosplay as Lilo from Fifth Element, and I noticed something after the end of the show that you did that made me laugh, because I know the feeling, and I think we all know this feeling. Is she had the wig on, and the minute we stopped recording, she was like, and I had to laugh, because I'm like, that's the exact feeling all cosplayers have. They're like, all right, we did this time. I'm hot, I'm sweaty, I'm hungry, I have to go to the bathroom. Venchise, fill us in on what it is you deal with the physical, the emotional, and the cost.
Oh man. Well, just touching on the wig removal, I think I black out during conventions as far as like the discomfort. And then like I'm riding a high, and if it's in Cleveland, I get home, or if it's away, I get back to the hotel room. And as soon as like I'm away from everything, my body goes, "Are you ready to feel it?" And I'm just like, my feet are screaming, and I'm just like, "Oh my God." But as far as like the emotional and everything, I kind of shared this last time, but I am in a much better place with that now than I used to be. Like the darkest moment of my cosplay journey was after, I forget what year it was, but it was the first year that we had done the Joker Harley. We had won Best Duo, and I put so much pressure on myself for the next time the convention came into town. I was like, well, I already won something. I can't not do that again the next year. The world is expecting so much. No one knew who I was. Like, but I thought like everyone was going to be like, you know, if I don't come back, here's something great. So my plan was to do another duo cosplay. My husband was going to go as Sokka from Avatar, but like in full wolf warrior garb. I was going to go as Princess Yue, who could have a changing costume from her normal one into her spirit costume. Never done anything like that before. Thought I gave myself enough time. I did not. And literally the night before the convention, I stayed up for like 36 hours straight trying to get this done because I had so much pressure on myself, to the point where it was like 10 minutes till the deadline to sign up. And I'm still at home. Like I have the wig half on, and I look at myself in the mirror and I look insane. Like I literally look like Cinderella after her sisters ripped her dress apart. Like this dress looks terrible, but I would put myself on such a crunch to get it done. And I just like broke down. I was crying. I slept for 16 hours after that. And I didn't touch like cosplay for probably about a good year and a half because I had lost every bit of joy I found in it. Mm-hmm. Until like one day, I think my husband and I just went to like some little Harry Potter thing. We pulled out like a Tonks and Lupin that we had from years ago, and I was like, okay, this is fun. And so since then, I've really made it an effort to, I mean, let's be clear, I still have con crunch. I have literally glued things to myself in a restaurant bathroom on my way to a con. Like it's a thing, but no longer am I putting that pressure on myself to have the best thing, the coolest thing has to be done at a certain time. Like for my plan for C2E2 this past year was to do a Wonder Woman, and I got the top part of the armor done, and then I kind of looked at it and I was like, I made the bust for someone who is an anime girl, like cartoon wise, like it was so big I couldn't feel it. I somehow made the waist too small. I was like, okay, so I have to rebuild this because it doesn't fit. And the skirt wasn't good, but I was like, you know what? That's fine. I'm not going to finish it for this one. I'm going to focus on something else that I can do. And so I kind of had that.
That's it, man. Like, game over, man. It's game over.
And on that note, I'm going to call it, but there are some good sides to cosplay, and I'm glad that we've touched on all of that. What you're saying, like you took that year off. So, but unfortunately, I have to call this one. I have to give it up, guys. I'm gonna let everybody put their calls out, their little shouts out. Tell them where everybody can find you at. So we'll start with Pally.
So you can find me at Twitter at Paladin356, at Twitch at twitch.tv/Paladin356. And if you're, I'm still kind of getting used to Instagram, but Pally356. And I would like to say I've also been starting to do some voice acting. So you might never know, maybe you'll hear me somewhere someday and something big. But that's where you guys can find me.
Okay. Assad?
No real internet presence as yet, other than my Facebook page. So if you're friends of friends or something, you can find me there. But hopefully I really do need to change
that. Casey?
You guys can find me at Casey_Nicole_cosplay, or Casey Nichole, because there's an H in the Nicole part. So I guess it's Nichole. So Casey Nichole_cosplay. Find me anywhere. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. And YouTube.
Venchise.
You can find me on Instagram, mixedmadness_cosplay, I believe it is. I'm going to get better at checking that and posting on there. I always forget to take pictures of what I'm doing until it's done, and I'm like, crap. So I'm working on it.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. I am your host and unforgettable protector, Chris Fury for Nerds on Ice, where you can find us on the Circle of Nerds. And until next time, remember to educate yourself and others, entertain yourself and others, and empower yourself and others. And until next time, Chris Fury, out.
All right, everyone, chill.
To hear all of our podcasts, look for Circle of Nerds on iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. And if you want to see these weirdos in their natural habitat, just look for Circle of Nerds on YouTube and Patreon. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.